IBM is being sued by the state of Missouri for its racist hiring practices that you've seen covered rather extensively here on the Lunduke Journal. This is, if you're keeping track at home, the second lawsuit in the last 2 months to be filed based largely in part on the IBM and Red Hat leaks. The first one was brought by an individual, a former employee of Red Hat. This one is brought by the government itself. The state of Missouri is suing IBM, and it is it is a really massive lawsuit. If you want to read the entire thing, I've got links to everything. If you go over to lunduke.locals.com, you can find the article there. I link to the original PDF of the lawsuit, and I quote some of it here as well. But I'm going to read for you a statement from the Missouri Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, that he released just within the last 24 hours. Quote, I filed suit against IBM for violating the Missouri Human Rights Act. IBM not only subjects job applicants to unlawful racial quotas, but bases current employees' pay on whether they participate in IBM's corporate racism. Yes. Outrageous and illegal. The Missouri Human Rights Act explicitly prohibits discrimination in employment decisions. Yet, the CEO of IBM was caught on video bragging about his systemic discrimination. Oh, yes. This was obviously going to come. Oh my gosh. This was inevitable. The fact that almost every tech news outlet in the world has been ignoring this story for the last several months, with the Lunduke Journal literally being the only... I digress. Allow me to continue with the statement here. He admitted, the IBM CEO, that his racial quotas would mean denying opportunities to American ethnic or racial groups not deemed, quote, underrepresented minorities, end quote, by IBM corporate, such as white and Asian Americans. For example, he explicitly pointed out that Asians, this is a quote, Asians in the U.S. are not an underrepresented minority in a tech company. However, others are. End quote. That's not only morally abhorrent, but a violation of both state and federal law. Missourians deserve answers as to why one of the largest technology companies in the world, with offices based in Missouri, is racially discriminating against both prospective and current employees. As long as I'm Attorney General, discrimination will be dead on arrival in this state. Thus ends the statement. I link to all of it so you can go read it all for yourself. You can read the whole lawsuit for yourself. It's actually a pretty fascinating suit because it has so much information in it. The suit cites many laws, very specific laws being broken by IBM, including both state and federal laws, with direct quotes from the CEOs of both IBM and Red Hat, who is the Linux giant that is wholly owned by IBM. And those quotes directly state the actions and intentions which break those laws. Like it's such a... I am not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I am a nerd turned tech journalist. I am not a lawyer. However, in reading through this, it is just such an obvious slam dunk case. This law, it goes through and cites, this lawsuit cites law after law and exactly how you violate that law, and then shows direct quotes from the CEOs of the companies themselves stating almost verbatim how they're gonna break that law. Like, it's just so, oh my gosh, it's so obvious and over the top. So go ahead and go read it. One of the interesting things that I found about this lawsuit is that the Missouri Attorney General is requesting that the court, quote, permanently enjoin IBM and all its employees, officers, and agents from using IBM's diversity modifier quotas. What does that mean? Well, that means essentially they're asking the courts to force IBM to stop being so gosh darn racist all the time. I mean, to put it in the parlance of human talk, I'm going to read for you the prospective relief that's being requested by this lawsuit. I'm going to read almost all of it here because it's pretty interesting. permanently enjoin IBM and all of its employees, officers, and agents from using IBM's, quote, diversity modifier quotas with respect to A, the compensation and employment status of any employees, officers, or agents of IBM who either live or work in Missouri or perform work intended to have direct and indirect effects in Missouri. Because we're talking about indirect effects and IBM has offices all over, this in essence means everywhere. Means all IBM employees would have to follow this judgment if it got handed down. B, the prospective employment of applicants whom will live, work, or will work for IBM in Missouri or will perform work for IBM intended to have direct or indirect effects in Missouri. Again, all employees of IBM would fall under that because of the indirect effects. And C, employment actions related to IBM's employees, officers, or agents whom live or work for IBM in Missouri or perform work for IBM intended to have direct or indirect effects in Missouri. So clearly the core here is that it's Missouri representing people from Missouri. But the real effect of this, if this judgment got actually handed down based on what they're asking for in the lawsuit, it would have effects on IBM fully across the board in every state and potentially in every country. So this is rather fascinating. So and this is the second lawsuit. The first one was filed by a former employee of Red Hat against Red Hat. And that lawsuit was filed back in May. I don't have an update on that lawsuit. I have reached out to Red Hat. I have reached out to the individual involved in that lawsuit, and I don't have any additional details to provide for anyone at this time. That's not terribly surprising. Unless legal documents get filed, typically people are advised to stay quiet about ongoing litigation until it gets reviewed by the courts, right? I mean, in general, lawyers suggest that both the plaintiffs and defendants kind of stay mum on the case, at least for a period of time. So that's not terribly surprising. It'll be interesting to see as things move forward what we hear there. Now, I want to point this out. And I also have details on that lawsuit as well up on lunduke.locals.org. But if you are not fully up to date on the IBM and Red Hat leaks, these all really got kickstarted back in early December of 2023, so half a year ago. So what happened is half a year ago, James O'Keefe published a video that was leaked to him of the CEO of IBM talking about these racial quotas, talking about how they do hiring and firing of people based on their skin color. Now, obviously, that's illegal and immoral and unethical and just not nice. However, that got the ball rolling. That really kickstarted a lot of stuff. A legal complaint was filed the very next day, and then very quickly, the Lunduke Journal started getting just a mountain of leaks. Video of the Red Hat CEO saying very similar things, talking about corporate hiring quotas of people with particular skin colors, but not other people. A whole presentation and training programs talking about how people of one skin color are literally bad. It actually says how evil they are in the presentation compared to people of different skin colors. And that was mostly within IBM or within Red Hat initially. And then I also got a number of leaks of internal emails and Slack messages and corporate presentations and all sorts of things from within IBM. And all of that is posted here. I'm going to link to it wherever you're watching or listening to this show. I will link to this timeline here so you can go through and look at all of the leaked material. It's a lot. It's a huge amount of material. And one of the things that is truly fascinating here is this is obviously a very big story. We're talking about some of the biggest computer companies in the world clearly breaking laws in very extreme ways, discriminating against their employees, being racist against their employees, clearly causing a great deal of harm. There was always going to be a backlash legally because of this. It was obvious. From the very first leaks we saw, it was crystal clear to anyone with two cells rubbing around in their heads that there was going to be lawsuits based on this, that there was going to be blowback in some way that was going to be extremely detrimental to IBM and Red Hat. That was obvious. So it was clear that this needed to be covered. And yet, here we are, 6 months after the initial leaks went out. We've continued to have leaks. We've continued to have new reports of ignoring of ethics violations and additional support, including corporate slides from company meetings, talking about how they're breaking these laws. The lawsuits are coming out, and it seems like things are picking up. And yet, no other tech news outlet is covering any of this. At all. Not even a little bit. The one exception, the one time that any of this got covered even a little bit was one article from The Register, which talked about the first lawsuit. Let me see here. Let me pull this up so you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. The one filed by Alan Wood against Red Hat. That particular lawsuit back in early May, after I covered it extensively, it kind of forced the Register to cover it. Over half of their article was attacking the law firm that brought the lawsuit, the person who brought the lawsuit, and defending Red Hat, saying how great it was basically that Red Hat promotes racism. And they're going to disagree with me, but that's how I read it. You go read it for yourself. It's what it looked like to me. And that was the only bit of coverage that it got. And even that coverage left out all of this. The absolute, overwhelming, extraordinary, and extremely vetted and impossible to deny mountain of evidence that has been leaked from whistleblowers from within both IBM and Red Hat. The Register completely ignored all of it. All of it. Now, I want people to ask why. Why did they ignore all of it? Why did no other tech news outlet, not Wired, not The Verge, not ZDNet, not Ars Technica, not Gizmodo, not nobody, no Linux outlets, not one Linux tech outlet covered this massive, huge, like story of the year big news item about Red Hat? Not one Linux podcast that I'm aware of, not one Linux magazine, not one covered it. This is huge. Huge and massive, and we need to ask, why is the Lunduke Journal the only outlet on planet freaking Earth that is covering all of this? Now, as much as I would love to be able to stand up and say, look at me, I'm the only one that did it, and it makes me feel cool, right? That is a symptom of a much bigger problem. The fact that I'm the only one with the cojones and the ability and the willingness to cover these stories is deeply concerning. I should not be the only one. My reporting, my investigative journalism, and my opinionizing, my editorializing of these topics should simply be one of many. But it's not. It is one of one. It is the only. And that is a serious problem, which means that, number one, if people aren't reading regularly the Lunduke Journal, they simply have no idea of the massive earthquake, tsunami level news that is happening at these tech companies, because I'm the only one reporting it. That cannot be the case. Now, is it the reason that all of these tech news outlets, that they will not touch it? Is it because their money depends on the advertising dollars coming in from IBM, from Red Hat, from others? I think there's a pretty good argument to be made there. Is it because of political leanings? Is it because the majority of the tech journalists and editors at these outlets are extremely left-leaning, right? They just are. Let's call it what it is. Better or worse, they tend to be very left-leaning. And these lawsuits They don't look good for people who are left-leaning politically, because these policies at IBM, at Red Hat, are instilled from people who are left-leaning, by executives who are left-leaning, and they are in line with leftist political ideology and talking points, right? And so these lawsuits, they don't look good. They aren't part of the narrative. Is that why? And I'm not trying to insult anyone who's left-leaning. I'm just trying to be honest about what it is here. We need to be willing to talk openly about what is the root cause of this issue. Now, here we go. I have heard from little birds that we have not heard the last of this. There will be more. There's going to be more relating to both IBM and Red Hat and legal action in the days, weeks, and months ahead. And I expect when that happens, I will again be the only outlet on earth that covers it. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to all of the subscribers of the Lunduke Journal. If you go to lunduke.com, you'll find some links there that'll take you straight over to the Lunduke Journal. And one of them is to Lunduke Journal Link Central, and that literally is just a lot of links where you can get the audio podcast RSS feeds, where you can follow me on Twitter or X or whatever, where you can find some of the various articles that I write. Not all, it's just a kind of a high level, get you started, sort of a starter pack of articles to get the ball rolling, including an awful lot of stuff that you won't find on any other Brand X tech news outlet. So thank you to all the subscribers that make that possible. What you want to do is subscribe. Free or paid, doesn't matter. Just subscribe, get started at lunduke.locals.com. And again, if you go to lunduke.com, all the links there will take you all over there. And if you work for one of these big tech companies, whether it's in the Linux world or the Microsoft world or the Apple world or one of the IBM and Oracle and Amazon world, wherever it is, and you've seen things that just aren't right, and you've seen things that people should be aware of, but that news just isn't getting out there. You want to be a whistleblower, but how do you do that? How do you do that while keeping your job? How do you do that while staying anonymous and making sure it's secure so that no one finds out who the heck you are? If you go to lunduke.com, click on the link for Lunduke Journal Link Central, and near the top, you'll see a little thing that says, hey, looking to be a whistleblower? Here's how to leak files and info to the Lunduke Journal anonymously. There's a whole article on how to do it. How to set up private and anonymous email accounts, how to send rather big files anonymously and securely to the Lunduke Journal. We have as a policy at the Lunduke Journal, we do not reveal our sources. So if you want to communicate directly with the Lunduke Journal, there's how to do it. Again, go to that Lunduke Journal Link Central page. You'll find all the contact information you need. You'll find how-to specifically on how to leak that information anonymously. Get it out there into the world. Whether you work at IBM and Red Hat and just want to contribute some additional material to the massive mountain of leaked material already out there, or you work at Amazon or Microsoft or Apple and there's just stuff people need to know. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. I want to say thank you to all the brave whistleblowers and leakers who have already sent in a tremendous amount of material over the last 6+ months. You are truly amazing. I am in awe of you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.